I think there's this really interesting dynamic where people go to Instagram, they go to TikTok to be entertained, to see their friends. They don't go there with the intention to shop. When you and I, Steve, open the Amazon app, we're there to shop, right? And we're there to purchase something. And so the question is, can you just embed a commerce experience and will it drive a bunch of conversions? And I think what we saw is not really, right? Not to a significant degree where people are so excited about it. However, if you open up your Instagram right now and you click on your Instagram stories, I guarantee you can't get more than 3 to 5 stories without seeing an advertisement.
You're listening to eCommerce Fastlane, the podcast show to help you build, manage, grow, and scale a successful and thriving company, powered by Shopify. Listen to real conversations with partners and subject matter experts as they share proven practical strategies, platforms, and the best Shopify apps to help you accelerate your business. The time is now for you to improve efficiencies, grow revenue, profit, and lifetime customer loyalty. Please welcome your host, startup founder, and strategic advisor, Steve Hutt.
Imagine your long-awaited order just got delivered. You open up the package, and as luck would have it, your new shirt is in the wrong size. So what do? You open up your laptop, begin a return, maybe even exchange, but all you see is a customer service phone number. And if you're like me in a situation like this, you really don't want to talk to anybody, let alone write an email. So what do? You don't have days, let alone a week or more, to wait for a response. The ideal next step is to process your own return online, drop it off at a nearby pickup location, and move on with your life. And this is what a hassle-free return process is supposed to be like. And it is a reality for brands who are powered by Loop Returns. Now, Loop is the only returns platform that helps Shopify brands to create an ideal post-purchase experience. And they don't just handle returns, they also make it easy for Shopify brands to incentivize exchanges so you can grow your business and make happier customers. You can find out why over 1,600 of Shopify's biggest brands like Allbirds, Chubby Shorts, and Patagonia, and so many more all choose Loop. 100%, go check them out today at loopreturns.com and learn more. Well, hey there, my name is Steve Hutt. I'm Senior Success Manager here at Shopify, and welcome back to the 6th season of eCommerce Fastlane. Now, if this is your first time listening or you're a weekly subscriber, I massively appreciate the fact you're taking time today and listening to the show. I know there's plenty of podcast choices out there in Shopify and eCommerce and direct-to-consumer marketing. And just the fact that you're here today means the world to me, and I know it does for my featured guests. So I have a co-host today, so it's actually excellent. I have 2 guests on, so it's lovely. New episodes are released twice weekly, and they're available in all of your favorite podcast apps like Apple Podcast and Spotify, Google Podcast. We're also streaming live now on Amazon Music and on YouTube. So if you want to check out that way of listening to your podcasts, and pretty neat platform to check that out. I also highly recommend to get the full value of today's episode that you click through from your podcast app of choice. And there will be the show notes. It'll be at ecommercefastlane.com, and you'll get the transcript links and then any of the resources that we mentioned today. So in today's episode, like I said, 2 guests, 2 co-founders. It's Anders Bill and Andy Cloyd, the co-founders of Superfiliate. And they're a word-of-mouth marketing platform that really helps e-commerce merchants. They really are focused on Shopify, really to help grow revenues using personalized storefronts. So it's very unique. It really is finding your best customers and your influencers and your affiliates and these creators and allowing them to have their own personalized storefront that all filters back, quote unquote, to the mothership, to the main brand. So it's very, very unique than kind of other influencer platforms or other affiliate platforms for tracking people with cookies and sessions and things like that. It's very, very unique. Highly recommend you listen through right through to the end. There's an exclusive bonus available too. I believe this is really timely learnings right now as we're in Q1 now of 23 and people are kind of concerned about the acquisition costs right now are quite high, and having an influencer and a dedicated storefront is very, very unique. So hi, Anders. Hi, Andy. Welcome to eCommerce Fastlane.
Steve, thank you so much. Steve, you pitched the company as well as us. Do you want to join the team?
I'm really, really happy at Shopify, to be quite honest with you, but I love sharing these stories and messages about what our partners are doing because you really are doing something quite unique. And I'm glad I didn't butcher it because sometimes I do butcher the intro sometimes with problems that brands are solving. But maybe let's talk on high level first about Superfiliate. If you can maybe, I didn't want to put words in your mouth, but I appreciate the fact that maybe I got it kind of close, but I'd love to understand the problem that you are specifically solving for Shopify today.
Totally. So we view the problem space, I guess, in two ways. One is really as a consolidation play. There's so many apps that are out there in the word of mouth ecosystem. So when we say word of mouth, first of all, there's so many subcategories that live within that. There's referral loyalty, there's ambassador, there's affiliate, there's influencer, and brands are usually using 2 to 4 apps. It's costing them thousands of dollars a month. So one is that you can run all of your programs in one place, all through the Superfiliate app. And the second one is exactly what you hit on, which is the personalized storefront. So, long story short, we view every affiliate link and discount code that drives you to a PDP or a shop all page as a really big missed opportunity where if I follow you, Steve, and I'm a super adamant listener of this podcast and the show, and I click on, let's just say, some CPG brand that you're promoting, I'm there because of you. You are the most important part of that buying decision. And we allow these merchants to embed those customers and creators in the purchase decision and actually scale up their use of storefronts. So it's usually a best practice to build a co-branded landing page. And a lot of people do that for podcasts, for example. I'm sure you've clicked on like a Lex Friedman link or a Joe Rogan link or whatever it might be. And it's like 8 Sleep or Athletic Greens. And people know it's a best practice. Exactly. But it's never really, that strategy is never really scaled up to the size and scale of a word of mouth program. And marketers are kind of tired of just offering links and codes. I think that's been going on for a decade. And it's like, hey, go on TikTok and social media and Facebook and Instagram and have this super personalized video about why you love our products, and then drive someone to a shop all page where there's 300 products there and they're kind of there to fend for themselves. So we're all about embedding that individual in the commerce experience.
So interesting you mentioned about the links and codes and all these kind of problems that are happening in the marketplace. I just think about a couple of brands that I manage, and their main concern is they have, tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of active codes out there associated to different influencers. And then these codes are getting scraped on Honey or Capital One Shopping or whatever. And that goes down another nightmare of like, are we really cannibalizing our margin by having free coupon codes floating around versus maybe the way you guys are doing it a little differently? By dedicated storefront and really attributing the creator to the store back to quote unquote to the mothership of the brand. And so it's easier to manage these sort of things. So I want to pivot a bit onto the starting story. Like, how did all of this come together? Because I feel so fortunate that I'm in this position that I get to learn about founders, these problems they're solving. Like, how did the pieces come together with both you guys together to say, no, this is what's going on in the marketplace right now. We believe that it needs to be different. And then I'd just like to understand that journey.
Yeah, 100%. So I would say this is a little bit of a circuitous, random origin story here, but I came to the world from the investing lens, actually. So I have been, spent 7 years at a couple of different early stage funds. Most notably was Revolution's Rise of the Rest seed fund. And throughout that journey, I had done a little bit of investing on the brand side, a lot of investing on like e-commerce enablement layers. So, applications like Superfiliate that are helping these merchants grow. First investment I ever made was actually in a company called Somersault. That's a large like women's swimwear brand. Watching the life cycle of that company and watching them scale, and the conversation at every round was 90% of our acquisition is via paid. How do we start to diversify that beyond other channels and start to activate influencers, creators, our own customers who we know are talking about our brand? How do we really create an awesome experience to allow us to start acquiring customers, not just beholden to a Meta or to a Google? And parallelize that with I moved into a house with a bunch of strangers, and Anders actually was one of those strangers. And it was really funny. It was like, I move into this house and here's a serial entrepreneur that had spent his whole life, building companies and solving customer problems, most recently even in the creator space. And we just saw this like really unique opportunity of, taking 2 different perspectives on the world and work on solving a problem. And when it came to like, what problem could we solve? We were very fortunate to encounter a team of really talented engineers that had actually built a company that was sold in the e-commerce space, bring them on and start thinking about this like word of mouth growth platform. We saw a bunch of headwinds of brands that we were working with who were struggling to acquire customers, particularly given some of the developments with IDFA, iOS 14. And, we really started to canvas the landscape to think like, how could we build tools that would facilitate growth in the word of mouth space, whether that's from customers, influencers, affiliates, ambassadors, etc. And Anders was spending some late nights brainstorming on that and had come up with a couple really awesome ideas. And, one day said, hey, I think we should take a run at this and let's see if we can help brands solve this problem. And many iterations later, we kind of brought it all the way home to these personalized commerce experiences where you're able to give these creators an opportunity to be in the loop on that entire customer journey, from exposure to education to ultimately conversion. And that was kind of how it all came together.
That's lovely. It's really cool, though. You use some words that I bring up a lot with brands, and brands mentioned too about like social commerce. And Shopify has many dedicated channels that allow social commerce to flourish. So if you want to, and definitely using Shop Pay as the accelerated checkout option, which is a kind of an offshoot of Shopify Payments. So let's talk a little bit about social commerce, and I think I'm going to talk about maybe an intersection a little bit of word of mouth. Like, are they similar? Are they different? I just want to understand like your lens around that.
Totally. I love this question. I think to zoom out, let's define social commerce and talk about just the first wave. So, the traditional definition of social commerce is commerce that's actually happening on social media platforms, right? And we don't need to go very far. It's an oligopoly, right?
Yep.
It's Facebook, it's Instagram, it's TikTok, it's YouTube. The first wave of that was embedding shopping experiences within those apps. I don't think that went as planned as any of those companies wanted it to, right? A lot of people use China as the reference point there. And for so many reasons, social commerce is going to play out so differently in America than it will in China, right? There's so many apps like Taobao and Pinduoduo that are so socially commerce driven that are not going to exist in America in the same way. And I think there's this really interesting dynamic where people go to Instagram, they go to TikTok to be entertained, to see their friends. They don't go there with the intention to shop. When you and I, Steve, open the Amazon app, we're there to shop, right? And we're there to purchase something. And so the question is, can you just embed a commerce experience and will it drive a bunch of conversions? And I think what we saw is not really, right? Not to a significant degree where people are so excited about it. However, if you open up your Instagram right now and you click on your Instagram stories, I guarantee you can't get more than 3 to 5 stories without seeing an advertisement. And the shift of that advertisement, I think a lot of marketers know this now, is you even look at like a Dr. Squatch, right? So much of their content is like memes and it's like what your friend would DM you. And that's such a great strategy because it's organic to the platform, right? It's native to the platform. And so I think there's this massive rewind of what the strategy is at TikTok and Instagram. And this is just me kind of on a guess here, but I think they're going to continue to push social commerce, but you're obviously seeing the shopping tab disappear, right? They're realizing that you shouldn't bifurcate those two experiences. You need to essentially take someone from entertainment to education to commerce, right? The shift from entertainment to education is a really, really interesting one. And that is usually done by creators and customers who are sharing products. So I think there's this really interesting intersection. And of course, that intersects with word of mouth, right? It's like anyone endorsing a product on social media has to now make that feel so native, not only to the platform, but native to their content, right? The days of paying an influencer thousands of dollars to do a post and they link in bio, but it's a non-organic and, ad read and they don't really care about it are over. Those days don't convert. And I think what people are now viewing is view influencers as partners, view these creators as partners to your brand. And that's how you can succeed in a social commerce landscape. I personally don't think there's going to be any social commerce platform that's separate from those that will break out. I think that there's a lot we could talk about what that looks like in the future and go all the way there. But I think that's how I feel on the social commerce and word of mouth intersection. It's been a bumpy road, but I think we're seeing it now as we swipe through all of our Instagram stories and TikTok feeds.
It's funny you mention that because my wife always complains a bit about the fact that I think it's every second post is another influencer that she's following or some kind of celebrity type. And, just like how many supplements does this person actually take? Or every second post is something new they're taking. And then she starts to unfollow people because all of a sudden, like, that's not the reasons why we're there. They want to hear the real story around that person and kind of what they're up to. It's kind of fun and interesting to see the 1% and kind of what they're doing, not flogging product just because of their, millions of followers.
It's totally true. I mean, it's all a game of trust, right? You have a certain level of trust with your audience and, not a lot of people want to get sold to. With that said, when someone really, and we've heard this from a few brands that are doing podcast reads, they've evaluated the performance in an ad read that they give to a creator or podcaster that's like very strict by the script versus saying no script at all, just go for it. And the ad performance was insanely better in the latter, just them saying and talking in their own words because people don't want to get sold to. They don't. but they want to be told what the benefits are and what the values of a certain brand are in a very organic way. And I think a lot of maybe what your wife's perspective there is, those people are probably really selling, right? And they probably really don't believe in it, right? It's like, hey, this does this and I sleep better, or X, Y, and Z, rather than like really, really focusing on content that I give this example to Andy, with like headphones, for example. If someone had a TikTok video that's 10 seconds, that's them screaming about how amazing this audio quality is, and they said nothing else about the product, it would probably perform 10 times better than, an ad read about all the specs of the product. And that's just the time we're in. And we feel it as customers. We don't want to get sold to. We want to just feel the benefits and see the benefits and be entertained as well as educated.
Yeah, absolutely. And it actually kind of reminds me on the SEO front, a little bit of a tangent, but it's so interesting. There's a concept called EAT that as far as, I think Google kind of brought this up, or at least created this an acronym around the expertise and the authoritativeness and the trustworthiness that goes along with kind of content. But they've added on a new E to it, and that E is experience now. So experience is different than expertise, because experience means you're able to look back and going, hey, wait a second, I'm able to contrast and compare kind of what's happened in the past, or I believe the future is, and you truly are experienced in the space versus maybe being an expert in the space. And then the authoritativeness and the trustworthiness all kind of go together. And it seems like that's the same kind of pattern that's happened with really great creators, is they kind of embody a lot of these real high, just some of these main keywords around their business and their theme. So it's pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. The black box of Google, always evolving.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to talk a little bit more about your platform a bit too, because I think we talk about the storefront side of it. So we understand the creator economy. We understand kind of some of these things that you're doing that are very unique. Can you walk us through what happens when someone says, I think this is interesting. I would like to have storefronts for my best ambassadors right now, my best word of mouth people. Walk us through what happens and as it relates to the main brand. I just want to understand where everything resides and how people can promote it and reskin it. And I just want to understand that whole process.
Totally. Andy, I'll hand this off to you in a second here. I think just to hit it at a high level, when a brand comes to us, we always kind of ask them what their word of mouth strategy is across all those subcategories, across referral loyalty, across ambassador, influencer, affiliate, to see where we can engage. Right. And we take this experience of having to go to an agency to pay them for a landing page and paying $10,000 and waiting 2 to 6 weeks to, hey, you've onboarded the app, we'll build you the first version of this experience. And now all of a sudden you add 500 Superfiliates. They have 500 micro commerce experiences they can share with their audience that are personalized by them if they want to, but on an opt-in basis, right? So you really want to bet on the customer and creator not doing any customization, because I think so many of us, don't want to change their workflow, right? We want to always account for them to just staying exactly the same. But Andy, I'll hand it over to you because I think you do an awesome job whenever we work with brands and evaluating where should we engage this company? How do we think about we're going to be the most impactful with our storefronts?
Yeah, absolutely. And with an account, let's figure out, where's that first need? Let's get something valuable off the ground and let's start to show the value here. And from there, we can take it a lot of different directions, kind of referencing earlier what we mentioned about word of mouth being a large category. So let's find somewhere where we can be successful. Let's show the value. And then from there, we can work with you and strategize. Hey, we've seen this work for a brand that looks kind of like you, or we've seen this type of program excel really well when you engage in that way. And I think ultimately what that comes down to for these merchants is just figuring out that opportunity, showing them that it's easy to do, and then really understanding what are your workflows in these other segments of your business and how can we map onto that. We don't want to come in and say, stop everything you're doing, learn a totally new way of operating. And, now you got to do it our way. We want to come in there, and we know that these marketers are used to letting people come and grab a link or talking to a creator and saying, hey, here's your link. Here's your code. Share it on social. We're going to step into that process and say, hey, at that moment now where you generate that link or that code to share with those folks, let's instead now improve the story. And let's say, hey, here's your storefront. We see you as an ambassador and an advocate for our brand and almost even a channel for our brand. Let's figure out what are your favorite products. Let's take that incredible TikTok video that you made for us. Let's throw it on the store. So that way, when your audience who comes to you to learn, and to see what you're using, they click, and it's no longer that you're gone from that experience and here I am shopping amongst 300 SKUs. No, it's actually rather, here I am. I see you there. You brought me here. You've welcomed me here. Here's your favorite products. Here's what you have to say about the product. Here's why you should buy. And then actually completing that transaction. So, we try to minimize that disruption. We're getting you that storefront built. And then we're just going to enable you to enable your creators and your ambassadors and all those folks that are selling on behalf of your brand. We're just going to give them a really unique experience and then ultimately close the loop and make sure that you're able to reward those people for doing that with conversion attribution, payouts, store credit, however you want to treat those people, we're going to enable that.
Now, online shopping can feel risky for some customers. Imagine if your order arrives in the wrong size. This totally happened to me recently, or in the wrong color, or it just doesn't look right on you. And there really can be hundreds of reasons why you may want to return a product, and I totally get it. And that's why Loop Returns makes it easy for Shopify brands to encourage exchanges rather than refunds. And we all know that returns don't equal goodbyes, they equal new hellos. And Loop really has a slick process to make it easy for a customer to have a fast return or exchange. Now, see why thousands of Shopify brands like Pit Viper, Somersault, and Princess Polly, they all choose Loop as their return partner. Now is the time to improve your post-purchase experience. So go check them out today at loopreturns.com. What about the partnership side? Because I think a lot of brands that are listening today likely have an existing tech stack. And, they could be a subscription product. I mean, you mentioned Dr. Squatch as an example, or there's a kind of SMS tools and there's email tools, and there's a lot of things that are built into a Shopify business to make it successful. What happens with these new storefronts that you produce?
It's a great question. So first of all, we integrate really, really nicely into all those providers, right? So the whole subscription stack across all the different players that are there, across Klaviyo, PostScript, Attentive, we can work with all that, all those integrations. It's really about, when you think about storefronts, it's about speed, right? It's about how can you deliver this mobile first, highly video optimized page? And then how can you make sure that a marketer's workflow is not broken and none of their ordering workflow is broken? So after you place an order on a microsite that we power on those storefronts, you're going to your checkout, right? We're not trying to own your checkout. And Shopify has done an amazing job to make that checkout so awesome. We don't want to bite that off at all. And so for us, we really don't break any marketing workflows, and we've integrated across the stack. We'll definitely do some review integrations in the future so we can pull in reviews. We do separate review sections now, which is just hey, you can pull off 10 to 20 of your top reviews and have them in those buying experiences. But I think full integrations on that side is definitely imminent this year. And so, we're deeply integrated across the stack, and I think that there's more to come on that front.
Lovely. Yeah, I was just actually looking there now. So you're right. Smarter and Skio and Recharge, all the big players out there, the PostScripts and Attentives and Klaviyos. And so they're all here. And so that's nice. That doesn't interrupt. That's always the blocker that I get from brands. Was okay, yes, I get the fact that I'm sick of these coupon codes and all the scraping and all the margin loss that goes along with incorrectly using these discount codes. And so knowing that they can have dedicated storefronts or microsites actually produced on behalf of the brand, I think that's really interesting stuff. Are we able to talk about a story now? I'd love to understand a brand that you can think of as notable on Shopify, ideally, that did influencer marketing at some point, some word of mouth business of some sort, but then found you, got involved in an early alpha or beta user. And then can you maybe chat with us about what happened when they implemented it? And is there anything on the other side? What does the great look like to them today? And what do you believe the future is going to continue to look like for them?
Totally. So I think one brand that sticks out to us is probably Florence by Mills, which is Millie Bobby Brown from Stranger Things. It's her makeup brand. And we started working with them almost a year ago, I think it was. And we really started in the referral loyalty space with them. And we realized that there was such a great opportunity to position it really as ambassadorship. I think that is something where so many people want to be seen next to Millie, right? She is a celebrity. So I think there's this unfair advantage in this example. But I won't give any numbers, but it has been so performant for them. It has been an extremely high return on investment acquisition channel and double-digit percentage of their revenue every month. And that's taking something that is traditionally 1% to 2% of your revenue, right? Most of referral loyalty and ambassador has been kind of a checkbox for a lot of people where they say, we have a program, it does 1%, 2%, 3%. And we were able to really turn it into a double-digit channel where there's 2,000 plus of these micro storefronts up and running, where these people can upload their content next to Millie. They can curate from the 100 products, their 10 favorite picks. And I think a really good individual customer example is this woman, Maggie. She's a TikToker. She doesn't have a massive following on TikTok, but she has made them tens of thousands of dollars because she has such honest and authentic product reviews. And she's just really awesome to watch. She just genuinely loves the brand. She genuinely loves the products. And instead of her making a TikTok and driving people to a PDP and a shop all page, she has her own storefront. It says Florence times Maggie. And she has this space where she feels recognized. She feels personalized. She feels like she can tell her story in a way to her audience that feels super authentic. So that has really closed the loop for them. And it has been a super successful deployment. And they were someone who didn't have, a ambassador strategy, and their best creators actually existed within their audience, within their existing customer base, which is a really, really nice balance to have. And sometimes we see this with creators that we work with. The micro nano influencer who's got 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 followers on Instagram, they may convert 50, 60 people. And then a big creator may convert 5 or 10 or none, and that's just really about trust and alignment. And those audiences are way less saturated with being sold to. And there's way more social risk, right? You're not going to share a product to your closest network if you're not like a big influencer. Let's just say you have a few thousand followers on Instagram, unless you really like it, right? You want to make sure that you're being held to this degree where your audience can trust you and they can be educated by you, by these products. So that has been a really, really awesome success story. And we have a bunch of others that are kind of like all in different subcategories of that word of mouth parent category.
You actually bring up a good point about your existing customers turn out to be your best influencers. And I totally agree with that, because what's interesting is that there are some tools out there. This is probably a good little tip for those that, that are going to use your solution, like Caro, for example, or Gatsby. There's a few others. I'll put them in the show notes. But, they literally look at, they do a one-time scan at the beginning and saying, okay, of all of your customers, your 10,000, your 100,000, your million customers, bring them all in. Let's understand their digital footprint from a social perspective. Bring it all in, because they're directly linked to all the social networks. And then they can put them into buckets. And you can say, hey, I want to work with people that have this many influencers between here and here. And then there is some automated process of being able to outreach to these people because they're existing customers. You're not having to pitch them with product or other kind of marketplace kind of like influencer platforms where you just don't know if they truly are all in with the product. These are people that have actually purchased your product. And a lot of times some of these tools, even there's some automation built into it. Well, wait a second here. Like actually the joke was with Carol recently, they made a comment that Tim Cook from Apple made a purchase on a Shopify store, the real Tim Cook. And they looked and saw it, and they're like, even though that, I'm not going to reach out to Tim Cook and ask him if he wants to be an influencer of some product that he purchased. But the idea is there that we can understand the footprint. Who do you want to work with in these micro influencers, let's call them? There are tools out there to help you locate these people at scale. And then it sounds like a connection to your platform, building that outreach, and then helping build a store at scale to these people that fit in the niche and the size and the engagement you're looking for.
100%. I think you also have to ask hey, what are the incentives that matter, right? For an ambassador, it's probably more of the social capital than the financial capital. And how can you give them something that helps them communicate that social capital to their audience? I think so often do we over-index for what we think is going to work on these programs. And when you ask a marketer, hey, would you actually use your own word of mouth program? Okay. Oftentimes the answer is no, right? Oh, there's all these tiers and these systems, and it's just too complicated. And we too often forget about the core psychological motivators that we have to not only share products, but share anything, right? Share food, share language. And those motivators, there's so many of them, but so much of it is around belonging and a sense of belonging, community. And I think we too often disconnect ourselves from that simple psychological motivator, and we try to overcomplicate these systems when it's really about, just asking yourselves, what would make you want to share? What would make you want to communicate the values and benefits of these programs? And then at that point, everyone kind of has some level of influence that they can share with the world. So that's how we think about the market.
Let's say those listening say, they go, yeah, okay, I'm all in. I want to try this thing. What's the onboarding process look like? And I have kind of a side question too about where does the microsite reside? Like physically, where is it? Is it on a subdomain? Can they have their own top level domain? Just curious and kind of how the technical side. So onboarding and then where the website actually is located.
Totally. So the onboarding process is super simple. We send you a link, you're able to get in. All of a sudden, our team will make that page for you, like I was talking about earlier. We're probably going to do that for the first few thousand people that come onto the app, because that's just like a magical experience on that end. We'll then help you make your Klaviyo, PostScript, and Attentive communications and set those up with you. And then it's a question of launch strategy. So much of this is not a launch, turn and burn, forget about it. No one would ever. It's so interesting too, because a lot of people have those programs that are checkboxes and they turn them on and they're like, it's not working. And I'm like, hey, if you just turned on paid media and didn't refine it, would it work? No, of course not. So if you spent the same amount of time and especially as brands are divesting from paid on thinking about your word of mouth program, you put a lot more love and care into it. And so I think we really try to cultivate that. We really try to find a champion internally or an agency that they're working with that can champion the product for that very reason. A, it's a constant contact game. When can you align touch points with peak moments of brand affinity? And then when it comes to actually launching the microsites and where they live, we'll always have a redirect. So let's just say it's stevehutt.com/Andy, right? And that's your brand. Let's say you're competing with Steve Madden, Steve Hutt shoes, and Andy's an influencer, and you would send him that link. So it's stevehutt.com/Andy. That'll be a redirect. So we won't fully mask on our side and use your DNS, but you do have redirects on that side. And also it's all vanity based. It's all about your name. So many people forget their links and codes because it's FJ79X2, all your name on your link and code. And so it comes to that full personalization.
And then what happens if an influencer brand ambassador wants to get involved with multiple brands that happen to be Superfiliate customers? What happens in that particular case if an individual is looking to build their own personal brand of maybe non-competitive products from within the same environment? Or would we create maybe 2 or 3 microsites if they have relationships with 2 or 3 different brands?
It's a great question. And it's something that Anders and I are constantly going back and forth on, because you see all these, dynamics at play where these creators, they own an audience and people are looking to the audience and maybe less so the brand. So we're constantly exploring what are the options of potentially creating a multi-brand creator storefront or something like that. Right now, we always keep it merchant to creator in a one-on-one basis. And it's for a couple of different reasons. One is these merchants don't want to be disintermediated from that experience. Even if it is non-competitive, we're all competing over the same wallet share, and merchants are a little averse to, partnering and then sending traffic to a third-party site where, now I've seen, I was going to buy Steve's shoes, but you know what? I actually need a scarf. And there's a scarf right there next to it. So right now we're isolating this to a single merchant and a single creator. We'll explore in the future, as we see this market develop and evolve, and as we hear merchants start asking for things like that, we will certainly explore it. But we really right now want to focus on deepening that authentic partnership between a creator or a customer and a brand. And, over time, might develop in that direction. But for now, we like to keep it one-to-one, make sure it's a super custom experience that's driving conversion for our customer, who is ultimately the merchant. And, it's been a really exciting opportunity and kind of time in the market, though, as you start to see this transition. And, we're going to be eyes wide open about those type of opportunities as they present themselves.
One thing too, and I would agree with you, is doubling down and being focused, even as a creator, trying to earn a living promoting a particular brand. You go all in figuring out that creative and then the post-production to make it all work. That's the external, that's the social side of it out there. And then your followers see that, then they're linked back to this microsite. It seems like I would agree with you. It's a very one-on-one versus a separate situation of someone creating stevehutt.com and saying, well, I love all of these products and it's me and these are the ones that I'm recommending. That's a whole separate conversation. And I totally agree with you.
And another really cool thing that we've seen some creators do is having a link tree is something that all of these people of any scale know about. And you can certainly have multiple Superfiliate links on a link tree. So, if I'm a YouTuber and I'm in the mental health space, I come to your YouTube page, I see your link tree, I go there and I see, I'm actually looking for, a coffee alternative. So I'm going to go to the coffee alternative link tree page, and ultimately that's going to funnel into a Superfiliate experience. So there are ways that these creators are communicating different either pieces of their own ecosystem or brands that they've partnered with in a single consolidated location. And if that's the approach they want to take, we're more than happy to have these links next to one another on a aggregator like Linktree or something like that.
Let's talk about pricing. I'm sure it's very unique kind of brand to brand, but is it more like a monthly access to the platform, or is it number of influencers, or is there kind of a pay to play or kind of performance kind of model around pricing of Superfiliate?
Absolutely. Yeah. So the way that we've approached pricing today is it's a small platform subscription fee plus a small success fee. And that success fee is really around aligning incentives. We don't think we deserve to be making money or even to be in business if we're not truly driving results for our merchants. So we have this multi-tier, this kind of multi-structured pricing model there where a small platform fee plus success.
Okay.
Now, the way that we think about this is ultimately we do not gate any features. We are going to price on the size of a merchant and the ability of us to drive results for a merchant, but we want everybody to get everything in the platform. We're not going to say you don't get storefronts unless you're at this stage, or you're limited on storefronts and you can only have 4,000. We want to say that we want to help the smallest brand to the largest brand succeed, to the extent that they can on the Superfiliate platform. And, we're going to give these folks all the features. We're going to help them utilize them, get them out there in the wild. And ultimately, we'll drive performance from there. And if a brand has a specific situation like, hey, I have an investor that won't allow me to do anything associated with revenue coming in the door, so we can't do the success fee. It's Anders and I as the co-founders. And ultimately, we're going to figure out a price where they're seeing a fantastic return on their investment. They're happy, but we're also able to grow our business and ultimately funnel that revenue back into more features to ultimately drive increased performance for these folks.
Thanks for sharing that. What about internationalization? I'm kind of nearing the end of the show for today, but at top of mind, I'm thinking conversations are happening a lot right now where the North American market is big and it's definitely growing, but there's also, with Shopify having Markets and Markets Pro and understanding duty and tax and allow you to branch out into the APAC and EMEA and all that. Are there any challenges at all about a brand saying, hey, I want to go international, but I also want to get some international, multilingual kind of creators in those local markets? Does everything still all work seamlessly as it would maybe in North America?
Yeah, it's a great question. We try to be really focused on North America for right now, because when we want to take on those different regions, we want to be very, very intentional when it comes to currency changes. It comes to the regulations that exist within those countries and regions. And so we really want to be intentional about how we're doing it. There are some brands that are using our storefronts, and oftentimes they have some workaround anyways, right? Their audiences may be used to seeing USD pricing in some areas, but then there's some anecdote somewhere on the site that says, hey, you'll actually get billed in your local currency. So there's all types of things that we're considering on that side. I think for the next 6 months or so, we're going to be laser focused on North America, but that will totally open up in the near future.
And Steve, a great place to partner with the experts at Shopify. You all have invested a ton of time and resources in solving that problem. And I'm really excited for the app ecosystem to catch up to the platform in that way, to make it super easy for us to serve the entire customer base of, not only Shopify as a platform, but also our merchants as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, we are nearing the end of the show for today. Is there anything that you want to kind of round up? Is there any kind of takeaways that you want to share with our listeners? We've kind of got to the end of today's recording, but just anything of note and kind of next steps.
Yeah, I guess we'll get into the next steps in a second, but I think it's a really uncomfortable time for a lot of brands out there. And everything from overcapitalization to a lack of growth to cost of acquiring a customer skyrocketed. And when we look at the category we operate in, we ask brands hey, we're always here to have a discussion. Andy and I are always available to talk and jam on your word of mouth strategy, because it's so important. And I think the way that people have viewed their word of mouth strategy in the past has been a little bit, it's so tantalizing to see Andy Cloyd, he has 1 million followers, or this person is the person in functional medicine and they're going to change our business forever. And instead of looking at those single individuals as being kind of life-changing, there's this natural filtration process that happens with literally every brand we see. It takes, quote unquote, dating 300 people at once to realize who's going to actually work here for you, right? And you have to work with those 300 influencers to say, hey, these 20 are going to really perform, and then double down on them. We really see ourselves, just kind of zoom out one step further, we think the brands that are really, really, really going to win in 2023 are the ones that are creating this feedback loop between their customers and creators, between the content they're making, and then the front end experiences that they can offer. And we view ourselves as building the front end infrastructure for brands to own that growth strategy. And so if you're interested in building that, if you're interested in building and consolidating your word of mouth strategy and building these personalized storefronts, you can always go to superfiliate.com. You can always contact Andy and I. It's Andy and Anders at superfiliate.com. Always super available to chat and jam and strategize.
And you're also on Twitter too, I noticed.
We are on Twitter. All hot takes.
That's awesome. You got it. I know we did kind of chit chat just before recording, and you mentioned that you'd like to share an offer for those listening today that would like to kick the tires and kind of get things going here.
Totally. So anyone who comes inbound from us from the show, just let us know Steve sent you and we'll waive the first month's fee. that also will come with essentially a personalized storefront. So you can kind of imagine it as a free landing page and then the first months of the product for free. So just tell us Steve Hutt sent you and we'll hook you up.
Beautiful. Well, this is lovely. So I'll have a landing page too created, ecommercefastlane.com/superfiliate. That will redirect to your site. And maybe we'll put an embed there for the show if you haven't already listened to it. And then kind of a lead capture there on your end to get this offer. Thank you so much. That 1 month offer is perfect and kind of, it'll allow people just to actually see kind of what does a platform actually do. Is there one last kind of parting note? Is there any sweet spot of merchant that you see working really, really well? Is there a GMV or a vertical of product that you see kind of working? Because I think there's all different maturities and complexities of brands that are listening today, some in the early stage, mid-market, and enterprise. Where do you see yourself working the best with the brands today and what verticals?
We've seen success from, small sub $500,000 GMV merchants all the way up to 50 million plus. Right now, we see the most success on that maybe like 5 million GMV and above. And it's not necessarily a product capabilities thing, but it's more about having the resources to invest in the program. To Anders' point, don't just turn on paid and there it goes. It's an optimization problem, and you're constantly figuring out what works and figuring out what resonates with my audience. And we just find that some of those larger brands, they have the dedicated resource or the agency budget to bring in somebody who's an expert. And ultimately, just figure out, where does my community live? What gets them excited? How can we empower them with the product? And we're always happy to support folks of all sizes and say what we've seen work in the past. But that's really where we see great performance thus far. But we're really excited to continue to bring that number down and make sure that we're super approachable. And we try to make sure that our pricing point also reflects that. Anyone can come to town and succeed with Superfiliate.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Anders. Thank you, Andy, very much for coming on the show today. And, as you know this, Shopify really has a mission. It really is to make commerce better for everyone. And I'd argue that, you really are in tight alignment with really wanting to help Shopify brands to improve efficiencies from their creators, grow revenue, and this lifetime loyalty. I just want to thank you for coming on the show today and sharing your knowledge and your vision. And I wish you tremendous success into the future in the Shopify ecosystem and helping these brands to scale up.
Thank you, Steve.
All right, let's do it. All right, have yourself a great afternoon. Well, that's it for today's episode. I'd like to thank you personally for being a loyal listener of eCommerce Fastlane. It's my hope that this podcast is offering you a ton of value through growth strategies, tactics, and exclusive insider tips on the best Shopify apps and marketing platforms, all with my personal goal to help you build, manage, grow, and scale a successful and thriving company powered by Shopify. Thanks for investing some time today and listening to the show. I'm so proud and excited that you have a growth mindset and are a constant learner. I truly appreciate you and your entrepreneurial journey. Enjoy the rest of the week and keep thriving with Shopify.